about that the past few rows. But what a lot of people don't realize is that a paladin's destrier is basically their companion. Okay, they have a uh, bond with their usually horse. Um, they have a bond with their mount that is akin to the same kind of bond that a ranger might have with a companion. Okay, it can, it can be deep. It can be deep enough where they're actually talking, and in our world, it is. If anyone has been uh, watching the Rings of Power series with Galadriel as the main character, I don't remember which channel it's on the top of my head, but I noted that a pair of Numenorians were talking, a father and a son, about the bond that they had with their horse. And it reminded me that people do not often role play when they have a horse as their destrier, you know, have a mount as their companion. And I feel like that's a slight oversight. Okay. Now, maybe not everybody here are horse people, and I'm not sure how many horse people we have, but it is still the case. It is across the board. Now, I realize that for those of you cavaliers and paladins that have other types of mounts, maybe you are. You know, let's say maybe you have a dragon, okay, and so the role play comes natural, okay, but it isn't any different if you have a horse, okay. Um, let's let's say you have a wolf, okay, then it kind of comes natural also, doesn't it? Because people are used to lichen and werewolves and the Anthromi, etc., etc. So they start thinking along those lines. Okay, that my mount is intelligent. Okay, that is no different than if you actually have a horse as your mount. Okay, so if you are a cavalier or a paladin out there, do keep in mind that your destrier is your companion. And in our world, we treat it the same way as a companion. If you're, and the positive part of that, of course, is if your horse dies, you have the power to bring it back to life. Real life, of course, you can't do that. We wish we could, right? But that does mean that you have that bond with your destrier. Okay, and of course, that is restricted to know, calves and and paladins, cavaliers and paladins. I'm trying to talk slow. It's a little thorn because I realize that you're typing today. And if someone wants to help her, that would be a good thing. But I am trying to talk a little bit slower so you can keep up. And admittedly, my mojo has been offset a little bit. Anyway, um, so that's an important thing that I noted. You know, when I was watching that show. You know, of course, you know, yeah, there are some people who are not heavily into it because they didn't read the Silmarillion or any of that jazz, and that's all good. But the show is actually pretty good, and it covers a few gambits. You know, things like elven eyesight. Okay, um, because elves have much stronger eyes than humans. Okay, and lifespans. Oh, yeah, that's something that I wanted to talk about. Lifespans. So I mentioned in the Discord group the other day about a period of time when some vampires moved into uh, one of the Deep Roads caverns. Okay, after obviously the second Spider Squid War, when most cities had been destroyed, and it's difficult for us because in real life we're human to conceptualize the massive amounts of time that we're talking about. Okay, because for humans, 100 years is a lot. Okay, okay, it's a lot of time. But for an elf, 100 years is a drop in the bucket. You know, 100 years is. I mean, yeah, it's still a really long time when you look at it. But they have such massive elves because my character is an elf, so yes, I'm an elf too. Elves have such a massive lifespan that the 200,000 years that we're talking about between the second Spider Squid War and the third Spider Squid War, which we're in now, I mean, that's a lot of time. To to humans, that's inconceivable. I mean, 1,000 years is ancient history. Okay, it's prehistoric almost. Okay, 6,000 years is way beyond something that we can conceive of. Okay, so if something's been going on for 1,000 years, that's how it is. That's life. That's how we see it. Okay, um, that's why we have time spans based on, you know, until recently, AD and BC. That's really only 1,000 years that we're talking. But for an elf, that's that's half their life, maybe. Okay, so linking this with the topic that I was referring to, for about 1,000 years, the there was a vampire queen who ran a city, for lack of a better word. Okay, one, because of size, one could say a state or country. Okay, now to humans, 1,000 years is so long. That's forever. Okay, but to elves, that's a very short period of time. Okay, and so when an elf is talking about, okay, so this happened for 1,000 years, all right, and for a human, they're like, oh, instantly think, okay, well, that's like forever. But like I said, for an elf is like, okay, that's not even an entire generation. Okay, well, because of birth rates and all that jazz. For humans, 1,000 years can be the difference between population of 800,000, the population of 8 billion. Okay, that's so much difference. Okay, all right, this is the way it was 1,000 years ago. All right, well, to a human, that's a lot. So, where I'm getting with that is that the 200,000 years that have passed between the end of the Second Squid War and the end of the third and the beginning of the Third Squid War, to elves, it has that same feeling, that same differential. That is, that we're looking at prehistoric time now. Okay, before you know, that's like 200 generations. Okay, so when you're looking at that from an elf perspective, you're looking at that's prehistoric now. So the Second Squid War, in time wise, compared to by you know in compared to humans, would be like the difference between uh, early Greece or you know Egypt, you know, compared to now. Okay, it is prehistoric. It's actually even before early Greek. Let's say Mycenaean. You know, and before and as far as Egypt goes, um, before the pyramids. Okay, or before the accepted date of the pyramids. There's plenty of archaeological evidence to tell us that the pyramids are older than we have accepted their date for. But I'm not going to go into that. Anyway, um, point being, point being is that to elves, the Second Squid Wars would be not fresh in the memory because it's so long, but early enough so that it's conceivable. Okay, like you know, Egypt and Greece and before Rome. Okay, before Rome, but you know, yeah, it's the same concept of like World War One and World War Two. Yes, that's well put. But it's a little bit farther back, but as far as the mind goes, but they would see it the same way. That's exactly correct. But we already know that in Earth time, World War One and World War Two happened within the last 100 years. Okay, so it's really fresh. It's only a couple of generations ago. It would be, but the idea is the same. As far as time span, we would be thinking like the second Spider Squid War would have occurred um, using human mind uh, quotients. Um, Maybe the beginning of the Roman expansion. Okay, so it's far enough back to be ancient history, but not far enough back that it's completely forgotten. Okay, because the Romans expanded from Italy all the way up to England, uh, Egypt, and Germany and all kinds of places. But it's it's not completely forgotten. Okay, and that is kind of where it would be. It occurred. We know it occurred because we have evidence of it. Okay, but it's not fresh in your memory. No one can, with the exception of the magician, of course, because he's an exception to the rule. But no one can just think back. Not even dragons can just think back and say, "Oh yeah, I remember when this happened." Okay, but there's enough evidence to say this did happen. Okay, we have archaeology, we have written histories, we have things that show that it did happen. The Roman expansion did occur. Okay, and to an elven mind, they're going to look at the second Spider Squid War in that same vein. All right. Now, in a big picture, yeah, we would look at it like World War One and World War Two. Okay, absolutely, and that we are currently in World War Three. In the big picture, that's how we would look at it. Okay, as elves. Okay, but temporally, we would look at it like the the last Spider Squid War occurred in the mindset as if it was the Roman expansion. And that would make the first Spider Squid War even further back than that. You know, far enough back that you might conceive of it as when Homo sapien and Neanderthal encountered one another. We don't know what happened during that time. Okay? And we do not have enough archaeology to really tell us what happened during that time. Now, because we live in a magical world and the magician was alive during that whole time, we actually have, you know, a contemporary way to find out. But with that being said, um, as far as the minds go, that's how it would be. Okay, like the second war would be the Roman expansion, and the first one would be when Neanderthals and Homo sapiens first encountered each other. But that gives you an idea of how the mind works for elves. Now, humans and other beings that don't live as long as elves are not going to think like that. Okay? None of that stuff even exists in their mind. It's so far back. I mean, it's so far back that the birth of an elf would be mythology. Okay? That's why in real life, elves are uh, completely mythological. Because even if they still existed, even if elves really do exist in real life, even if that was the case, it would be beyond our human comprehension because we haven't seen one for 1,000 years. Okay, and that's or 2,000 years or whatever. They are part of mythology. Okay, and but because in our world we have written histories that go that far back, okay, and we have living history because of magician and I don't and Tomaru, Argyle, but that pretty much covers the gambit and the gods, okay. So that allows us oral history of those things. So we have physical proof they existed. Otherwise, there would not be any, okay, without archaeology and oral history. We can go into the deep roads, which collapsed, 200,000 years ago and have been rebuilt over that time by dark dwarfs. Okay? In the human mind, then the the inner world, um, some kind, this sometimes called the Underdark, depending on whose mythology you're looking at. But the old kingdom, in the human mind, the old kingdom never existed. It's a myth. Okay? In the human mind, the deep roads are the is what is what happened before. The deep roads is what they can can look at and say, okay, this is real. Okay, um, my father's father's father um, knew about the deep roads. Okay, so that is how they can conceive of it. They cannot conceive of it as this massive empire, the old kingdom that once was. It's not possible for the human mind to grasp the fact that at one point the entire planet underneath the crust was a sprawling giant civilization. Okay, it's it's even difficult to conceptualize that some of the caves down there are the size of Texas. Okay? That is so difficult to wrap your brain around, you know. But obviously, because we are all fantasy people, we have a little bit, we have a, what's the word? We have more of a heads up, we have more of a grasp than your standard individual whose brain never even touches those subjects. Wherewithal, yes. Okay. So that's why I bring these things to you guys, you know, so you can, so, I mean, some of it, hey, you know, maybe some of it's too deep to, for your, to wrap, and too much to wrap around. And hey, that's all good, you know. You are under no obligation to, uh, deep think, okay? Funny question came up the other day, or this morning. And someone brought up, are dust bunnies alive? Well, that is a philosophical question, okay? They're not biological, okay? That is true. But are they alive? Well, that depends upon your definition of live, okay? So are golems alive? Are elementals alive? You know, that is something that this type of community can actually handle, okay? You know, we can look at something and say, okay, it doesn't have to have flesh and blood to be considered alive. But that is, you know, there's going to be a lot of people who don't have that, okay? Even in a fantasy world, you know, you're going to run across, you know, people who don't think that. You know, people who don't believe in magic, that's fine. You don't have to believe in magic. It doesn't mean it stops, okay? Um, People that don't believe that a golem is alive because it doesn't have a heartbeat. Well, that means, you know, in some people's mind, if it doesn't have a heartbeat, then it's not alive. Okay. And there are going to be others who think, okay, does it think for itself? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll go into plants. That's a good one. Okay. You know, plants are alive. Okay. And most people conceptualize that. Okay. They say, okay, we know that plants are alive. But you know, it's still philosophical because if you have a rock that walks, is it alive? Okay, it's a philosophical question. And that's something that every single individual is going to have to the, make their own decision about. But as a mage, uh, I would say, yeah, it's all alive. Druids, you druids out there, your druids are going to have a different concept, just their very nature. Okay, you're going to say, okay, if this rock is talking to me, it's alive. Okay, because rocks don't generally talk. A tree, which we know is alive, okay? But then you start have to then you start having to differentiate between sentient and alive, okay? And so then you can say, all right, the definition of alive is that it is born, it grows, and it dies. Okay, that is one definition of alive. Okay, and plants, animals, people all fall under that. Okay, and so if you use that definition, you could say that elementals are not alive because they are, generally speaking, they're not born, grow, and die. Okay? But that doesn't make them not sentient if they can talk to you. So back to the dust bunnies. Are they alive? Well, they're not born. They don't grow with age. They can grow with size. They can grow in size. um, and do they die? Well, that's debatable. On at least on this plane, if you kill a dust bunny, it goes back to the elemental plane of dust. So, you know, it's not actually dead. Okay? You have eliminated its mortal form. But then that brings up the question of mortality. You know, in the words of Yoda, these these crude. Let's see if I can remember the exact quote. Uh, this crude matter we are not. Luminous beings are we. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, then even humans, if they're killed, go somewhere else. Okay? They go back to their plane of origin. So dust bunnies, going back to their plane of origin, and fae and celestials, demons, devils, you are eliminating the mortal form, the the physical avatar that they possess, contain, um, inhabit, and that's their mortality. But you know, in the case of like elementals, things that are summoned, you know, you have to, then you ask the question, were they born? Well, in some cases, yes. Other cases, no. Does that make them less alive because they were not born here? Okay. That does not mean they were not born somewhere. Okay. Okay. Yes, this is a very deep philosophical discussion. And I do not expect everyone to be able to nab onto it. Um, a lot of people are just happy with the hack and slash, and that's fine. I'm good with it. You know, but for those of you that want that tend to tackle the deeper topics, there's some things to think about. You and it goes right into, do androids dream of electric sheep? And for those of you that don't know, that's a book title, and it is what Blade Runner was based on. And so it asks the question: are replicants alive? That's what that whole thing is asking. Okay, so we can tackle those topics here in our place, and for those of you that wish to do so, of course, you know, Metallica, they're golems, okay, but they are born and they grow, and but when a Metallica dies, it dies. you know, it doesn't have anywhere else to go. All right. Yeah, because the soul that inhabits a Metallica is a cleansed soul from someone else. You know, that has been used as a power source. So when they die, they're dead. Okay. And, you know, there are living weapons, okay, living items out there because they have a soul. Okay. Sometimes they talk, sometimes they don't. They don't they don't walk. Sword on my back right here, Stormbringer. It's alive, okay? And it drinks souls. It's not necessarily a good item because it does that. Good as far as alignment wise. Um, uh, we have a player who has a cloak that eats people. Okay. Yes, he hasn't been around for a while because real life, but his cloak eats people. It's alive. Master Aval over there has a staff that talks. It tries to drive you crazy all the time, you know, but it is a relatively powerful magic item, and it is alive. Okay, and you're going to run across that kind of stuff, but it's it's a excuse me, it's a philosophical debate on what you consider to be alive. You know, so all right, I know that uh, I tackled some deep subjects today, and uh, I'm going to pause for a moment here. And any questions? And about the stuff that I've talked about. I know in some cases your brains are going, burr, 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 you know, overload, 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 burr, burr, burr. System error, overload. I know in some cases that's what your brains are doing. So my apologies for that. um, but, you know, hey, sometimes it's like that. Okay. Any questions on topics that I have not discussed? Because I know that there are a vast array. My apologies for not walking in here today with everything already in my head that I was going to talk about. But my mojo got thrown off. And it kind of um, it rattled my cage. So my apologies for that. Nothing. The depth to which I brought you all today have put you in a coma. Okay, Dust Bunnies. We're gonna go to a lighter topic. Aside from their, are they alive or not? Dust Bunnies. So yes, the chest was opened, and the Dust Bunnies have seeped through the crevices and through the earth itself and crawled out into the world. They're being carried on the wind to all the realms. Okay? So if your realm has not been inundated yet, role play that it is. Okay? Because the Dust Bunnies are not isolated to Silvara. Just because the chest that was opened happens to be in the deep roads, that is OOCly physically located in Silvara, does not mean that it only would come here. Okay? They are carried on the wind, and they seep through the deep roads, and the deep roads are under every single realm. Whether you have uh, whether you have a physical deep roads set up in your sim or not, the deep roads are still there. Okay, it may be a section of the deep roads that is just a tunnel. Okay, because the deep roads are so massive in size. There are going to be tunnels that are long enough to be a sim, long enough to be 15 sims. Okay, but they're still there, and maybe your realm has a crushed deep roads underneath it. Okay, could even be crushed tunnels, Could have been what used to be a city, but was exploded by a fallen star kicking off. That's all possible. So that you could say, okay, we don't have deep roads under us. Well, that's true on that level, but in a broad sense, you do. It's just it doesn't manifest because it's been crumbled or or wiped out for whatever reason. Okay, which brings up another question. Okay, um, the fallen star. Okay, people are people are still working on getting it to the surface so it can be made into done something with whatever it is. But if you start conceptualizing the fact that there are caverns the size of Texas, then you understand why the fallen star existed in the first place, why there were dark suns. That's what they were called when they were functional. You understand why they existed is because of these caverns the size of Texas. I'm using that one as probably a super large. That's one of the largest caverns. Okay, size of Missouri is also very large cavern. Some of the caverns are going to be the size of you know New York City, the metropolitan LA. Okay, but still, you understand the reasons that why they needed dark suns in the first place. Because you know many moons ago, you know people were farming and growing orchards in those places, and they needed sunlight, but not sunlight at the same time. So the the Asgardian dwarves, which we as humans we call them gods, built them for the dark elves, okay, so that they have fully functional, fully functional life under in the inner world, under the earth. Yes, dwarven, dwarven gods. Asgardian. Well, I can go. I've talked about it many times, but I can go into details when people wish. But point being is that if you start conceptualizing that there are caverns of those massive sizes, okay, you start understanding why the dark suns were needed in the first place. And you also understand that when the Illithid triggered them, when they detonated them, why it caused such massive destruction. Because when you have an object that floating over your head goes, rises in the morning, for lack of a better word, goes up to noon and then comes down in the evening, and you have an object that's able to emit enough light for the state of Texas, um, you know that that's a powerful object. And then detonated, it destroys that entire area, everything, you know. Now you know what you guys have. Okay, when you start thinking about it, that is the object that you guys are in possession of. That you are trying to keep the denizens of chaos from owning. Okay, the real, the biggest problem with it is detonated. It is a very powerful bomb. Okay, if it can destroy Missouri, okay, with one blast, that's huge. Okay, that's not, you know, that's not a bomb that goes off and takes out a city block. Okay, it's way more than that. Okay, this object that you guys possess in the wrong hands is catastrophically lethal. In the right hands, it's a sun for a underground society. Does that all make sense? So it does kind of matter whose hands it's in. And yes, it's soul powered. So everybody who dies near it powers it up. So all the combat that's been going around, it is slowly powering it up. But it takes a lot of soul. Okay? It takes a lot of soul. But you already know that the Illithid have no qualms in just feeding their metallicite to it. You know, someone had a dream one time, one of the players. Um, Beowulf, maybe, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Star. Of lines and lines of metallicite just marching to the fallen star and dropping over. Okay, it was Arthur. And dropping over at the end, and then just being their bodies being bulldozed away, put into a cart and brought down to the recycling center, so that they can get new, so that they can recover the living steel from the bodies. That would do it. Okay, that would refill the fallen star and make it a dark sun again. Okay, certainly. However, since the Illithid have the detonation codes, that would make it bad. Okay, and on that same note, since the Illithid have the detonation codes, filling it up would be bad as long as they have those detonation codes. Now, the magician has been sending the Blood Knights out and killing Illithid as often as possible in hopes that the detonation code can be eliminated from existence. But since I leave most of that stuff in your guys' hands, and it's a role play that all of you guys are part of, okay? And it affects everyone. And since I'm the game master, I am I am not going to take a card off the table myself. It can only be taken off by the players. And since most of my blood knights are doing other things, I don't know how many elephants they've been killing. Yeah, see that's the thing. Is where is it housed? Okay? The the code is in somebody's head, okay? And the hive mind has access to it. But if everyone knew the codes, then Drusilla would know the codes. And since she doesn't, that means it's not. That means it's housed somewhere. Someone has it in their brain. Drusilla. Yes, like a mental streaming service. With an S, but yes. Now, Drusilla is an illithid that has been, what's the best way to put it? Um, linked to Beowulf's mind. Okay? And so he knows that she doesn't have the code. The code. Beowulf, yes. He knows she doesn't have the code. So that means there's hope because that means that it is not shared in the hive mind. Not everyone who is linked in has it. It means it's housed somewhere. Okay? Someone has the code. Just got to figure out who it is. And that's the mission that the Blood Knights have been on. But like I said, since I'm game master, I'm not going to take a card off the table. That card has to be taken off the table by individual Blood Knights, individual players, you know, however it rolls. Uh, does that make sense? So although the fallen star could be a bomb, it isn't by its nature a bomb. Okay? Does that make it? you know, does it, does that make it less dangerous? It's still dangerous, but it's not. But if no one has the codes, then it ceases to be dangerous. Does that make sense? Now, filling it up is still not necessarily a good guy thing to do, okay? Because it requires massive numbers of souls, okay? So I can't say that filling it up is a good guy thing to do. And to but that's not my call. Uh, but regardless, it's something to think about. I talked about all kinds of deep subjects today. It's been deep subject day, I guess. All right. But still, any questions on any of that? Doom, 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 doom. Okay. All right. Any other questions have been burning in your soul since I was up here last? None? No one has any questions about Dust Bunnies, magic swords, uh, divine magic? Okay, thank you for bringing that up. Okay, glass weapons. Okay, glass, a new material that I introduced last battle is glass. Okay, and it is not the window pane glass like you can look out here and put your fist through. Okay, it is nearly indestructible clear material. It's called glass because it it looks like shaped glass, you know, and that is why it's called that, you know. But it is nearly indestructible. I mean, it's not entirely so, of course, um, but it is the tensity is along the lines of steel. Okay, but it is very magic resistant. Okay, and it is not metal for you druids out there, and for you people who don't wear metal, it can still be used. Okay, um, that puts it in the in the realm of possibility for rogues, you could get scale mail armor made out of glass, made out of glass, and you would have chainmail armor class, but with +2 MR. Okay, the significant difference between glass and steel is that steel has no MR built into it. Okay, magic resistant, whereas glass does. Okay, and steel rusts. Okay, thank you for asking the question. It's magic resistant, but it does not inhibit a caster at all. Okay, it's unlike some of the metals, like orichalcum, for example, which is magic resistant. Orichalcum completely inhibits your magic. Okay, it's like wearing, you know, casting in a tin can. Whereas in the case of glass armor, it is very, not only is it light as far as weight goes, but it is also light in the fact that um, you can you can see through it. Okay, and so magic can radiate out. It prevents damage from magic coming in, and it allows the magic inside of it to go out. Does that make sense? And as someone, right, exactly. And as someone mentioned, it does not rust. Okay, obsidian. It is. It's like obsidian. Okay, because obsidian is glass. Okay, but it's the no one has broken down the chemical compound of it just yet, and so I don't want to release that information. But I tell you, it is not exactly obsidian, but it is like that because obsidian is glass. Okay, and thank you for bringing that up. Smart person said that. Um, but it's like that. But obsidian, we know, is pretty easy to break. This is not. This is as strong as steel and as sharp as broken glass. So when you're thinking obsidian, if you ever used a blade crafted from obsidian, then you know that it's like broken glass. As far as weapons go, it's going to be like that. Yes, exactly. Obsidian is sharp but brittle, and that's the beauty of this, and that's why you know it's not obsidian, is that it's not brittle. Okay, glass is brittle. Obsidian is glass. It's brittle. This looks like glass, but it is not brittle. You cannot. A blacksmith cannot use it. You need a glassmith. Glass. You need a glass blower. You know, to actually work it. I don't know if we have any. current professionals that are working in glass, but they would be using it. But I will tell you that that it is a certain type of heated sand. But beyond that, you're not going. I'm not going to give you broken down information about it. I want players to figure that out. But I will answer questions and tell you something. Sand, a certain type of heated sand. I will tell you that much. Sand that has been melted into glass. Can a caster of any type create the heat needed to melt or create it? It um, it does require. It does have a very high melting point, um, but it is not impossible. Fireball is hot enough. Okay, it it melts at about the same temperature as steel, and for those blacksmiths in the room, know that's really high. Okay, and yes, it can be tinted. Any other substances, anything added to it is just going to tint it. Okay, so you can effectively have black glass armor. It is possible. It's still gonna it's still gonna be shiny like glass, although um, we all know that you could frost glass. So can you frost glass armor, glass weapons, glass material? Yes, you can. It can be frosted. But its nature is clear. If it, in its purest state, it looks like, you know, as clear as a window. Hey, hey, not going to answer that, Jalil Thorne. You guys will have to figure that out yourselves. Smart though, means you're thinking. Did I answer your question about the new material? But as you have probably figured out, it is very rare. Okay, it is very rare. But once you figure out what it's made of, it can be crafted by a what is the technical term for a glassmith? I'm gonna have to look that one up because off the top of my head, I'm pretty good, but I don't know that. Yes, glass blower. Um, that's I use that one, and that's the only one I can think of. It seems like there might be another terminology used, because that's right now that's the only one I can think of. But yes, should we ever have a glass blower, they will be able to make this if they, of course, they had. There's other things they got to figure out what it's made of and all that jazz, but it will be a different Gaffer. I like that one. Henceforth it shall be known as Gaffer. Okay. But yes, it is an awesome material, and I look forward to people trying to figure out what it's made of, and hopefully we'll have some gaffers in the Professions Guild. Uh, uh, okay. Um, I I will make one more comment here about another new material that's, but I will warn you, it's virtually impossible to make. Um, Someone many years ago in ancient times figured out how to combine the three prime metals, okay, to be able to alloy them. No one else has been successful in hundreds of thousands of years, so it's not something you're going to run across. But there are a couple of them in the GA. When you combine orichalcum, mithril, and adamantine together, someone has successfully made an alloy of that. But it's ancient times, so it's not. Yep, that's right. There are there are the daggers that Gilles Claws have, and orichalcum, mithril, and adamantine. It's there's only two sets of daggers that have been ever located made of that, and the other one, if you guys are any of them been looking at the Discord group, I put Cantino's advertisement out for them, so that will show up at the next auction that Bashar Security has, if there ever is one, another one. But if there is one, those daggers will be offered. Um, they are, it's the only time that anyone has successfully been able to combine those three. Usually, when you combine those three, um, you get, you know, one of the other potential, but very cool alloys. Okay, but there's only one combination that creates this new material. Okay, and I guess I just wanted to bring that up because we were talking about alloys. Okay, but back to the glass. Yes, it has a lot of potential for cool factor, especially in the fact that it has magic resistance and is as hard as steel. So we have, chainmail, scale mail, Chainmail would be really hard, but you know what? Skilled craftsmen, hey, could they do it? It could be. Right? Skills, you know. Glass blowers can make, little tiny glass animals. So who's to say that they couldn't make chainmail, right? And if we're using this material, those little tiny glass animals are not going to be so easy to break. You're not going to be able to throw it against the wall and shatter, you know. It'll be like, throwing a dagger, maybe. Ah, okay. Any questions on any of the topics discussed or new ones? All right, before I shut this down. Um, but yes, Cantino has another set of those daggers too. But those other daggers, they're going to be auctioned off. Something for you people that are involved in professions. Do remember you can get your first two levels in the library. Okay, you can get just by the books. Ha 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 ha. The alloy that I was referring to earlier, it's been called lunarium. But yes, you can get your first two levels of any profession in the library. You just have to spend time in the library with, and every hour that you're there, you'll get a 5% chance of somebody have to roll for you. So you have to role play looking through books in the library, and every hour have someone roll uh, someone roll for you, and see if see if you get the knowledge and level up. Okay, and it's cumulative, 5% per hour cumulative. Okay, so 5%, so like 95 to 100 in first hour, 90 to 100 in second hour, etc., etc. Okay, so just if you want to learn a profession, that is the easiest way to begin one, especially one that doesn't already have someone that's already doing it. Because another way you can do it, of course, is get with someone who's already teaching it. Awesome. That can, that works. You can do that too. But for those uh, that no one's teaching, or you can't get hold of a teacher, first two levels you can get from the library where you are right now. And then after that, then you have to start role playing with it. Okay? Role playing it, doing it publicly in the GARP. GOC's not going to help you a whole lot. You can do that, but you'll role play it into the GARP, and then after a while you'll level up some more. Okay, you don't need 3 or 4 years to uh, to become a craftsman. You could you could effectively, you know, you could you know, if you had the time to do it, you could effectively be level 3 gaffer in a week. You know, I realize time is a commodity, but you know, dice rolls sometimes are on your side, and you can get that, and you can get those dice rolls kicked out, and just if you knock a role play out every day, then you can get then they of you working on glass blowing, gaffing, then you could it's not impossible to be level 3 in a week. Does that all make sense? That's why I put the magic books in the library in the first place, to avoid taking years to have a profession. You know, not only the not only what you see around you, there are a lot of hidden things, that are purely role play, in the library here. And that's what those roles are for. Is you're looking through the books, and you stumble across um, a grimoire of gaffing. Bum bum bum. You're now level 1 gaffer. Bum bum bum. Hmm. Level up. Got me. Okay. All right. My apologies. My mojo is off a little bit today. Any other questions? Any things you've been wondering about and didn't know the answer for, or need a clarification on something? How many people knew that you can go to the library and start a profession? Not a single person out there knew that? Okay, so, all right. Couple people knew, but most people don't. Okay, all right. Now you do. And be, don't be afraid to spread the word, you know, because, hey, it's helpful, you know. I know that there are things that people want to be able to do. And they're like, well, how do I get started on that? Okay. You send them to the library. It's like, all right, you can get your first 2 levels there. And then if there is a teacher out there, you just hook up with that teacher and say, all right, I'm ready to be level 3. Okay. And start those start the role plays right after you get your level 2, and you can get yourself up there. And going from 3 to 4 is a little bit more complicated, okay? But getting to level 3, which is craftsman, and that's the point that you need to be in order to successfully sell something, etc., etc. You know, make it a usable item. All you have to do is hit 3 to get there. You know. Okay. Yeah. 4. Okay. 4 and 5. Yeah. Those are going to be a little bit more complicated, more time consuming, and a lot more role play. But 3, you can get to that point relatively simply. You know. Okay. I'm not going to keep everybody here for a million years like I normally do. My apologies. Because, but I will, you know, answer any questions there are before I roll out. But I've pretty much covered the topics because I didn't walk in here with anything in my head. I was a little distracted. My apologies. But I'm still able to throw out some information, distracted or not, right? Even some extremely deep topics. All right. Last call for alcohol, people. You don't have to go home, but I can't stay here. Lunarium. It it has doesn't have the same properties. It does not have all the same properties of all of them. It has a combination of all of them. Okay. Primarily, nearly nearly indestructible, and it it cannot be dulled. Okay, so when you're using it on weapons, no matter what you do, you can sit there and you can take your daggers and pound the edge with a hammer. Okay, and it is not going to dull. Okay, yeah, just like the Jinsu knives that I was talking about earlier, it's like that. Okay, if you've seen the advertisement for the Jinsu knives, they are made of lunarium. Okay, and you'll never see armor made out of it, but it would be pre- pretty impossible to pierce it. Okay, you know, you would have to do blunt damage against someone who's wearing lunarium because you're not. The forging process is incredibly secret. It is lost. It's not just secret; it's lost. there's only been 4 weapons, 4 knives in 400,000 years that that have been made of it. Okay. I mean, even when they made living steel, which is incredibly rare, they did not discover the secrets to Lunarium. And you and I can tell you that they were doing everything under the sun to do everything they could to kill dark elves at that time. That's how come they came up with living steel in the first place. But they did not find the recipe for Lunarium. Only 4 weapons have ever been made out of it. You guard those blades. You are right. Does that answer your question? No, the knowledge of it is not out there anywhere. The person who made them has been dead for 400,000 years and he didn't write it down. At least living steel has a recipe, and that's super rare and hard, mega hard. But there's a recipe for that out there. But there's not a recipe for Lunarium. Not even IKEA. But they're all 4 daggers that were built are in the GA. 2 of them in somebody's hands. The other 2 will eventually show up. The other 2 are the Jinsu knives, and they have already been enchanted, and so they're already ready to go. But Lunarium has some of all 3 properties. They can be. They can they can hold enchantment. They they can hold enchantment. But because of the nature of the metal, any enchantment that you put on them is only going to last half hour tops, no matter what it is. No matter how powerful of an enchantment that you put on it, because of the nature of the metal, it's only going to last for half hour. Unless it's done at my level. But I'm not going to do that. You would have to melt your daggers down, and then it would be a very small chance of getting the recipe. So risk versus reward. If you melt those daggers down, then you maybe have a 1% chance of getting the recipe. If it's worth it, And dragon fire won't melt them. Okay. You can drop them in lava and they'll just go to they'll just float. Yep. Drop them in Mount Doom, they're just gonna float. 'Cause that's a volcano. They're nearly indestructible. As yeah, powering them up, it can be done, but it's like plastic. Plastic. Ephesus would get a kick out of these. I think he's talking about enchanting them, which you could do for a period of time. He's Master Apprentice, so he could probably power him up for mm, decent amount of time, but not permanently. Ah, oh, that's right, because you are a spell sword. Yes, that is very smart. Yes, he's right. You know, a spell sword powering up an archmage is going to have you know, a higher effect. If you could possibly, if you guys were creative enough, I can think of ways that you could actually enchant your swords, your daggers. My apologies, but it's would require role play that I'm not going to discuss. I'll let you guys figure that out. But there you have it. A pair of indestructible knives. Okay. And yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. And they are as sharp as a razor blade. And you can't dull them, so that's pretty good. You know, you want to shave your legs? Yeah, do it. Never have to worry about nicks and cuts again. Yeah, you don't miss. If you do, then yeah, you cut right through your own leg. You know, but if you're skilled, you could do it. I mean, all you guys out there, we have been shaving our faces for years. What would we pay for a razor that never dulled? Yeah, that would be the bomb. You know, Okay. That answer all your questions uh, about Lunarium? But it is not a material that you guys are generally going to have access to. So, you know, I don't, I only brought it up because we were talking about glass, and and it happened to be that that role play recently was went out there, and I said, well, you know what? There is one other material. Okay, so, but yes, glass is an incredibly awesome material. I'd like to see. It'd be cool to see some gaffers out there trying to figure out how to make, figure out what sand that we're talking about, what material, what kind of sand is used. All right. Um, any anything else? Okay, here. Nothing. Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing some people work on working on gaffing and those and Dust Bunny role plays. Remember, Dust Bunnies are everywhere, and so it's up to you to interact with them, or they're out there. So you've seen a couple of role plays, I think. You've seen a few of them out there so far, but just remember they're everywhere. So it would be cool to see some Dust Bunny role plays going on, and somebody working on gaffing, and those are the two things I can think of off the top of my head. Any questions about Dust Bunnies before I roll this out? Before I close this up? Maybe you might want to know what you can or can't do, and if you if you read the last Queen's Tea and you know they're elementals, that was that was an icy event. So um, you know that dust bunnies are elementals. You know they multiply. You can you eat dust? I'm not saying you can't. You just have to decide if you can eat dust or not. There's you know there's no rules that you can't eat dust. So can you? What kind of dust are they? Well, they're basically they're basically coal dust. Yeah, it's like what's under your bed, you know? It just depends. They're dust. Coal dust is one kind of dust. Okay? You have to find out. Is it possible they're flammable? Dust is flammable. Some kinds of dust are flammable, you know? But, you know, they are I don't know who this person is. All right. But yeah, there you go. I look forward to seeing you guys roleplay with those dusts. Yes, Zorn do eat dirt. You're right. So, yeah, I only know of one person who has a Zorn off the top of my head, but they do exist. And because we're talking, because Zorn was brought up, the pictures that you guys, a lot of you guys have seen of Zorn is an error. They be somewhat, couple people have drawn them in this weird, crazy alien fashion, and that's not what they really look like. They look more like they look more like badgers. Can demons eat dust? Some of them can, you know. Okay, I I would sit here and talk forever because I do that. But I'm going to go ahead and close this. I do look forward to some of those Dust Bunny role plays being rolled out, seeing what you guys can do with them, because there's all kinds of potentials, you know, all kinds of things that you could possibly do. I'd like to see what you guys come up with. All right, Bella Dust for your attendance, and Vendaus for now.